The January night was colder than usual in Millbrook, a small suburb about 40 minutes from Minneapolis. Officer Derek Hansen drove his patrol car along Route 47, a secondary road known for its quiet winter mornings. At 37, Derek had 12 years of experience in the state police, but for the past 8 months, each shift had seemed more arduous than the last. He still hadn't gotten used to patrolling alone. The absence of his partner was like a black hole sucking away any attempt at normalcy. Derek had been assigned to work with Officer Marcus Webb for almost 5 years. Marcus was the kind of cop everyone wanted by their side during a dangerous call. He had a dry sense of humor that eased tension in the toughest moments, and an inexplicable ability to read people just by observing their movements. Marcus had saved Derek's life twice. The first time was during a chase that ended with an armed suspect pointing a gun directly at Derek's chest. Marcus shot before the man could pull the trigger. The second time was less dramatic but equally important. Derek was going through a complicated divorce and had started drinking heavily. Marcus went to his house one night, knocked the bottle of whiskey out of his hands, and said he wasn't going to let him destroy himself. They talked until dawn, and Derek never touched alcohol again. In May of the previous year, Marcus and Derek responded to a domestic violence call at a house on the outskirts of Millbrook. The situation seemed routine at first. A woman had called saying her husband was out of control. When they arrived, the man was in the garage, seemingly calm. He cooperated initially, but when Marcus approached to talk, the man pulled out a knife hidden in his back and stabbed Marcus in the neck before anyone could react. Derek shot the attacker, killing him instantly, but it was too late. Marcus bled out on the garage floor while Derek desperately tried to stop the bleeding. Paramedics arrived within 5 minutes, but Marcus had no pulse. He died before reaching the hospital. Since then, Derek carried a devastating guilt. He constantly wondered if he could have done something differently, if he could have seen the man's intentions before it was too late. The mandatory therapy at the department didn't help much. The psychologist said Derek was suffering from trauma, from loss, and needed time. But time didn't bring Marcus back. Time didn't erase the image of blood on the garage floor. Time didn't silence Marcus's voice in his head, saying everything would be all right. That January night, Derek was lost in thought when he saw the headlights of a car zigzagging down the road ahead. The vehicle, an older white sedan, had crossed the dividing line twice in less than half a kilometer. Derek sighed, turned on his hazard lights, and sped off to catch up with the car. Probably another drunk driver. It was the third that week. He hoped it would just be another routine stop. Fill out the report, call a tow truck, and send the driver home by taxi. When Derek turned on his lights, the white car didn't slow down immediately. It continued moving forward for a few more seconds before finally pulling over abruptly to the side of the road, almost skidding on the icy grass. Derek parked his patrol car behind it, activated the body camera, and got out of the vehicle. The icy air cut his face as he approached the car. Through the rear window, he could see that there was only one person in the vehicle, a woman in the driver's seat. She was leaning over the steering wheel, her shoulders trembling. Derek tapped on the driver's side window with his knuckles. The woman jumped in her seat, startled, and turned her face toward him. What Derek saw made him take a step back. The woman's eyes were wide, completely bloodshot, and her mouth was open in a silent scream. Tears streamed down her face, and she seemed to be hyperventilating. Derek immediately changed his posture. This wasn't a drunk driver. This was someone in absolute panic. She opened the window, her hands trembling so much she could barely hold the handle. Derek kept a safe distance, one hand near his holstered gun, but his voice was calm when he spoke. He asked if she was all right, if she was hurt. The woman tried to answer, but only incoherent sounds came out. She was clearly in shock. Derek asked her to turn off the engine and show him her hands. She obeyed mechanically, still sobbing uncontrollably. Derek took a few steps back and called for backup on the radio, also requesting an ambulance. Meanwhile, he tried to maintain eye contact with the woman, assessing whether she posed any danger. She didn't seem to. She was completely emotionally broken, but showed no aggression. She seemed more like someone running from something. Derek asked if she was hurt, if someone had hurt her. The woman shook her head frantically, but still couldn't form words. That's when she finally managed to speak. But what came out of her mouth made Derek's blood run cold. She said a name. Marcus. She shouted the name Marcus Webb. Derek felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. He stood completely still, his mind unable to process what he had just heard. How did that woman know Marcus's name? Why was she shouting his name? Derek felt a chill run down his spine. He forced himself to breathe and asked how she knew Marcus Webb. The woman was trembling violently now, hugging herself inside the car. She said, "Marcus was there. She said she saw him." Derek felt a lump in his throat. He asked what she meant by that, where she had seen Marcus. The woman pointed behind her, in the direction she had come from, screaming that he was in the road, that she almost ran him over, that he was covered in blood. Derek felt a wave of nausea. He knew this made no sense. Marcus had been dead for 8 months. He had been at the funeral. He had seen the coffin lowered into the ground, but the woman kept screaming, saying that Marcus was there, that he was hurt, that he needed help. Derek tried to maintain professional composure, but his hands began to tremble. He asked again how she knew Marcus Webb, how she knew his name. The woman said she didn't know Marcus. She said she'd never seen him before in her life, but when she saw him on the road, covered in blood, he screamed his own name. He screamed that he was Marcus Webb and that he needed help. Derek felt the world spin around him. This couldn't be happening. He was having a nervous breakdown. It had to be this. The stress, the guilt, the lack of sleep, everything was finally driving him insane. Derek took a deep breath, trying to ground himself in reality. He told the woman to wait in the car. That help was on the way. Then, against all protocol, against all logic, he returned to the patrol car and began to drive slowly in the direction from which the woman had come. He turned on the headlights, illuminating the road ahead. There was nothing, just empty asphalt and bare trees on either side. Derek drove for about 3 kilometers, checking every shadow, every curve, searching for any sign of a person on the road. Nothing. He stopped the car and got out, using his flashlight to scan the roadside. The wind howled through the trees, and the temperature was dropping even further. Derek shouted Marcus's name, feeling ridiculous doing so, but unable to control himself. There was no answer, only the icy silence of the winter night. He returned to where he had left the woman. Another patrol car had arrived, and Officer Thompson was trying to calm the driver. When Derek got out of the car, Thompson looked at him with concern. He asked if Derek was all right, saying he looked pale. Derek ignored the question and walked over to the woman, who was now sitting in the back seat of Thompson's patrol car with a blanket over her shoulders. Derek crouched beside the open door and gently asked if she could describe what she saw. The woman wiped away tears and said she was driving down Route 47 from Minneapolis, where she had visited her mother in the hospital. She was tired, but not sleepy. Suddenly, she saw a man standing in the middle of the road, right ahead. She braked sharply, almost losing control of the car. The man was wearing a police uniform, but the uniform was torn and stained with blood. A lot of blood. He had a horrible wound on his neck. Derek felt his legs give way. He leaned on the car to keep from falling. The woman continued. She said the man looked her straight in the eyes and yelled that he was Marcus Webb, that he had been stabbed, that he needed help. She panicked and sped off, swerving at the last second. When she looked in the rearview mirror, she saw no one. The road was empty, but she was sure of what she saw. She swore she saw it. Thompson looked at Derek with an expression that mixed concern and confusion. He suggested that the woman be taken to the hospital for evaluation. She was probably under the influence of some substance or suffering from a psychotic episode. Derek mechanically agreed, but his mind was elsewhere. The woman's description was too detailed. How could she know about the wound on her neck? That information was never publicly disclosed. Official reports were confidential. The ambulance arrived and the paramedics took the woman away. Derek told Thompson he needed to check something and returned to his patrol car. He drove back down Route 47, this time more slowly, examining every inch of the road. Still nothing. He stopped at the same spot where the woman said she had seen Marcus. There were no skid marks, no sign that anything had happened there. Derek turned off the engine and sat in silence, only the occasional sound of the radio breaking the stillness. Then he heard it, a faint, almost inaudible voice coming from somewhere nearby. Derek opened the car door and got out, turning his head to pinpoint the source of the sound. The voice seemed to be coming from the right side of the road, beyond the row of trees. Derek grabbed his flashlight and began walking toward the trees, his breath forming clouds of vapor in the icy air. He walked past the line of trees and found a small, snow-covered ravine. At the bottom of the ravine, he saw something that made him stop in his tracks. There was a car overturned on its side, partially hidden by the vegetation. The vehicle was a dark sedan, and it appeared to have gone off the road and rolled down the ravine. Derek climbed down carefully, holding onto the tree branches to avoid slipping on the ice. When he got close to the car, he shone his flashlight inside. There was someone inside. A man was trapped by his seatbelt, unconscious, with blood covering his face. Derek immediately radioed for an ambulance and backup, reporting that he had found an accident with a victim. He tried to open the door, but it was locked. Derek broke the rear window and managed to get into the car. The man was breathing, but weakly. Derek checked his pulse and found a weak, irregular heartbeat. He had a deep wound on his forehead, likely caused by the impact. Derek began administering first aid, trying to stabilize the man's head and stop the bleeding. As he worked, he looked at the man's face under the flashlight. There was something strangely familiar about him, but Derek couldn't quite put his finger on what. Sirens approached rapidly. Within minutes, the scene was filled with police cars and an ambulance. Paramedics descended the embankment with a stretcher and equipment. They worked quickly to free the man and stabilize him before transporting him. As they placed him on the stretcher, Derek asked if he had any identification. One of the paramedics checked the wallet that had been found in the car. He read the name aloud: Michael Reeves. Derek didn't recognize the name. He watched as they carried Michael to the ambulance. Thompson approached and asked how Derek had found the accident. Derek hesitated before answering. He said he was checking the area after the woman's strange story and heard something. Thompson commented that it was very lucky. If Derek hadn't come looking, Michael Reeves probably would have died of hypothermia before anyone found the car. Derek returned to the precinct a few hours later, mentally and physically exhausted. He went into the locker room and stared at his reflection in the mirror. His face was pale, and there were deep, dark circles under his eyes. He opened Marcus's locker, something they still kept untouched, like a makeshift memorial. Inside were photos, some personal belongings, and Marcus's spare badge. Derek picked up one of the photos. It was of him and Marcus in front of the patrol car, both smiling after solving a difficult case. Derek felt tears burning his eyes. He whispered a thank you to his dead partner, not knowing exactly why he was doing it. Then he closed the locker and went home. In the following days, Derek tried to make sense of what had happened. He visited Michael Reeves in the hospital. The man was recovering well despite his serious injuries. He explained that he had lost control of the car due to an ice patch and went off the road. He didn't remember how long he was unconscious in the ditch. Derek asked if Michael knew anyone named Marcus Webb. Michael said no. Derek also tried to find the woman he had stopped, but she had left the hospital after being discharged and hadn't returned his calls. The official report stated she was under extreme stress and possibly hallucinating due to fatigue. But Derek couldn't accept that explanation. Her description was too accurate. What if he hadn't gone back to look for her? If he hadn't heard that voice, Michael Reeves would be dead. Weeks passed, and Derek gradually resumed his routine, but something had changed within him. The guilt he carried since Marcus's death seemed a little lighter. He didn't fully understand what had happened that night on a Route 47, and probably never would, but he chose to believe that somehow Marcus had guided him to that ravine. His partner had saved his life twice in life. Perhaps he saved it once more after death, giving him the chance to save someone else. Derek never told anyone about his suspicions. He knew how it would sound, but sometimes, when he said driving alone along Route 47 during his nightly patrols, he would talk loudly to Marcus, updating him on how things were going, on the cases he was working on how he was learning to move forward, and on some of those nights when the wind blew a certain way or when the shadows moved strangely, Derek could swear he heard Marcus's characteristic laugh echoing in the silence.